Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2415. Today we're going to drop the clutch and move fast, talking a bit about drag racing. So be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Bentonville, Arkansas, with a very special guest by the name of Mike Narx. Mike, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I am so ready for this. It's going to be exciting.
Now, before I get into the fun that you're having here and give you a little more proper introduction, what's one little thing that maybe people don't know about you, Mike?
That I actually ride mountain bikes as often as possible. So that's what keeps me limber and keeps me moving around and, going off drops and hitting jumps and all that kind of stuff is typically abnormal for a mid 40-year-old guy.
Well, good for you. I think that's great. You know, it's amazing how mountain bikes have come along over the decades, and I'm older than you. And, way back when I took my Schwinn Stingray and turned it into, back then, kind of what we call a BMX bike, I guess, of a motocross thing when I was in high school and then even a little bit past that. But mountain biking today, I mean, some of these mountain bikes are just super techy, and then you add the EV factor that goes into some of these. I have an old high school, and actually we go back to elementary school buddy. He and his brother, and they're in their mid to late 60s, they have these mountain bikes that have these electric motors. So when they get to hills that are a little tough, they get a little assistance. But is your mountain bike something really kind of techy and cool?
Oh, yeah, it's full suspension. So I purchased it because I had a hardtail, which means no rear suspension, and I was just taking a beating. So I purchased this bike because I was going to be riding a lot more. And I actually did. I put 1,500 miles on it last summer.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Well, do you ever see yourself converting to an EV mountain bike?
Oh, certainly. I've been looking at them.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. My buddy, again, he showed me the two bikes and we went for a ride. This is a couple of years ago. And I mean, these things were like $12,000 a piece or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything like that, but that would be the ultimate goal because I enjoy my cars with regular horsepower, but my bikes, I would definitely take some e-assist.
Yeah, very cool. Well, times they are changing. Well, let's talk a little bit a lot more about you, and I'll give you an introduction here. Mike Narx is the creator of Drag and Drive Addiction, a source of news and entertainment from the drag and drive community. We're going to learn what that means in a moment. It's a weekly live stream covering events, racers, and stats from events worldwide. Mike left his past career as a logistician, a logistician. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Okay, logistician for a large retail vendor to pursue his dream and to work in the automotive sector. Kind of what Cars Yeah is all about. Mike began selling cars at the age of 19, and in 2013, he hosted his first car event, something he's done more than 40 times since. And since then, he's raised over $60,000 for local Northwest Arkansas children's charities. How cool is that? And in 2016, he and his brother, we may get him on the show one day, began wrenching for customers and opened a Narxoleptic Customs. There's a tongue twister. He created YouTube content with over 400 videos and podcasts. Today, his brother has a full-time shop, building a variety of vehicles from LS swaps to four-wheel drive conversions. I guess Mike probably gets in there and spends a few wrenches once in a while, too. We're going to learn a lot more about all of this in a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love, and we'll be right back. Buckle up. Years ago, when it was time to renew my collector car insurance policy, my carrier's rates went up, way up, but my usage was the same and I never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. So what's with that? So I turned to American Collectors Insurance. Has your collector car insurance recently raised your rates for no good reason? Tired of paying an annual membership fee? Then it's time to look around and call American Collectors Insurance. I shopped around, I asked friends for recommendations, and found a winner that I can trust. And boy, I'm glad I did. I saved hundreds of dollars every year and slept better at night knowing my baby was properly insured. American Collectors Insurance have been protecting vehicles since 1976. They provided me with an agreed value insurance policy backed by their history of taking great care of their clients. What could be better than that? So give them a call and ask for a quote today. 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love like I did with American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. So, Mike, we're back. So I want to start off with this term drag and drive. Can you explain to those listeners out there? And I have to admit, when I first read it, I went, wait a minute, what is this? I know what dragging is. I know what driving is. But what's drag and drive? Do you put somebody out back behind your car and take them around a field or something? I hope not. So what's drag and drive?
So if you think back, the movie Two Lane Blacktop probably personifies this as much as anything. A lot of car people know Two Lane Blacktop and how those guys essentially went town to town, drag racing, loading all their stuff in that car. You know, they had everything they needed to race and make their performance, to win the money, all that kind of stuff. So essentially, that movie was taken and made literal. And so that's what a drag and drive is. Hot Rod Drag Week started in 2005. And from there, it has hosted an event every year with 300 cars. And essentially, it is a driver and usually a co-pilot loading up in their race car and driving from track to track for 5 days, racing at a different track every day. And then the average of your passes during the week culminate to your standings within your class.
Oh,
so essentially you're racing for an average ET to get through the week.
Now, are these all different kinds of cars?
Oh, certainly. We have anything from 240 mile an hour cars, 6 second and a quarter mile Dodge Vipers, to there was a car at Hot Rod Drag Week this year that finished with an 18-second average and was trying to get an 18. He was pushing that car as hard as he could. So,
wow. Well, this is very cool. Well, before we get into this a little bit more, I want to go back here because you did something very brave. You had a career, and all of us get into careers, and then we end up with families and mortgages and all these things, and we kind of get trapped a little bit. And you took a very bold step at one point and decided, you know what? I'm going to take a step outside of my comfort zone, I'm guessing, and went back to your passion for cars. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what made you so brave? Because that's a brave move.
Well, certainly. And I want to give a lot of credit to my wife. She is scared to death, but also supportive and understands that this is something that we have an opportunity because of our sponsors to take the leap and run for, several months with no regular paycheck income. Yeah. And, we started structuring that early in I think it was early 2021. I began kind of, paying some bills off and looking forward into the future with this as the ultimate goal. So we did that in June, and it has been awesome since then. Essentially, what pushed me to that was I was out of vacation time at work. I had spent 7 weeks of vacation in 2022 and had used all of my back time off and everything that accumulates and rolls over. And then in 2023, I was only going to have 4 weeks and had committed with our sponsors to the 6 weeks I thought I had. And so at that point, it was like I need to make a decision. So I ran at work as long as I could and still traveled as often as I could to get to these events. And in June, it just became apparent that was no longer going to work.
You said a couple of things here, and I talked to people. It was the same for me when I started this podcast. You have to build yourself a runway and be ready. And one of the big things is get out of debt. I think you should get out of debt anyway, no matter what. Our society seems to just kind of live in debt about everything. It seems to become the norm, which is not a healthy way to live because it puts you in a real bind if you can't work anymore, or if you get sent home, or if, a thing like COVID comes along and government shuts your business down, heaven forbid. But you got into this, and can you explain to listeners with what you're doing exactly? Because it sounds like to me, you get on the road, you go around and you live stream these things, you present them to people, you show people. So those of us that can't go out and do it can actually experience it. Is that how I picture what you're up to?
Yes, certainly. So I would say my job title technically is a drag and drive statistician, announcer, event promoter, and then host, right?
Hmm.
So essentially what I do at events is talk with racers, find out what's going on with their cars, find out what their plan was, take that data back. Then we also follow the classes and racer names and cars throughout the week and take all of that data at the end of the year. And we'll talk later, but also we create these lists that are the top 10-second racer lists or the top 100 racer list. And so we use all of this data that before us doing this had never been collected. No one ever had all of the data. So I spent hundreds of hours digging through Facebook posts, old posts on different websites, collecting all of this data from previous years and have culminated it here and essentially go through and just find the interesting tidbits, kind of like what any historical publication does, but we do it strictly with drag and drive events and racers.
It's very cool. Now, you've developed a point series, and I understand that I think it's in December, you're going to be awarding the first ever Drag and Drive World Champion at the first ever Drag and Drive Awards. This is pretty cool. Tell us about that.
I'm so excited to have Summit Racing as a sponsor, like a large sponsor of our brand. And obviously they are so involved in so many different facets of the automotive community. But the gentleman we speak with are actually drag and drive racers as well, have built cars for it, have competed in them in the past and things like that. So when we pitched them with this idea of like, we would like to cover all of this, they said, what's next? What do you think is going to happen next with this community? And we were like, how do we compile and bring all of this data together for people to care about, right? Because if you follow NHRA drag racing or IHRA drag racing, they have point series. All of those other all those other organizations, they all have trackable. You can go back and look at historical data. Well, we wanted to do that. And with this world champion, we started off obviously thinking just the US, but then there are 3 events in Canada, an event in Sweden, 2 or 3 events in Australia. There's one now in New Zealand.
Oh my gosh.
And so we start looking at these and we're like, well, you can't just have a national champion. You have to have a world champion, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So we took about 3 months and developed a point series that we felt was fair enough because as a Top Fuel racer, John Force, he only competes against Top Fuel and he only collects points in the Top Fuel class. Well, essentially, we couldn't do that because there are so many different styles of classes across the industry or across the community. So we needed a way to track racers and collect their standalone points. And this other struggle that drag and drive racers have is the same thing drag racers have across the country, is you have parts shortages and you end up in a situation where, oh my gosh, I don't have the parts I need to bring my big race car, my plan A race car. So you end up with a plan B race car, which could be something that's relatively fast, but for their plan B, we didn't want to have it hurt them. So like if John Forrest races say he raced in Pro Stock for a weekend because his Top Fuel car wasn't ready, he would receive Pro Stock points instead of Top Fuel points. Well, we couldn't have that because these events are a week long. So when someone comes to race, they're taking anywhere from 7 to 9 days off of work to compete in a drag and drive event.
Holy cow. I mean, these are serious deals. You mentioned a couple great brands here. One is Summit Racing. Back in, it was the summer of 2022, I had James Hura, who is the project manager at Summit Racing, and any of us who's involved in cars and motorsports know Summit Racing. They're just such a great company. And the other is PRI, Performance Racing Industry. I've been to some of those trade shows, and theirs this year that you're going to be doing your awards is December 7th. Do I have that right?
That's right. We're starting on, everybody always asks, why did you do the first day of the event? So we're hosting our event December 7th at 11 a.m. So it's early on day 1 of the event. And the reason we did that is because we wanted the world champion and their co-pilot to be able to flaunt that victory all weekend as they're walking around PRI.
Yeah, that's very wise. I think it's very smart. having been to PRI and even bigger SEMA, which, is a show that's coming up now, I think doing things early in the week sometimes is better. By the end of the week, these shows, you're a little worn out. and
Oh, yeah.
tired.
So
And plus, you have some attrition of people that can only stay a few days. They typically don't come at the end of the show, they come at the beginning. So I think that's a very wise thing that you've done. Well, this is a pretty cool deal that you've created. And, my hat's off to you because I follow some people on YouTube that have created shows out of their life. And some of these are not even relating to cars, but I just find them interesting. There's a sailing show I follow. There's another young woman from Poland who's been traveling around the world in her Land Cruiser. And there's another guy who goes and tours really high-end homes all over the world and yachts and things. And people that have been able to create careers out of this phenomenon, I really tip my hat because it's not easy, is it? I mean, there's a lot of work to this.
certainly not. Because we began this brand in February of 2022, we've posted more than 6,000 times across all of our social media.
Holy cow. Wow. Well, you know the secret, and that's being out there all the time. And, you know, I mean, it's a lot of work. And even in the world, the lesser world here of podcasting, without any video, it's just a lot of work. I mean, there's a lot of back end stuff. This looks simple. You just talk to people every day. Okay.
It's way harder than that. And I do want to talk about that for a second, because that is one thing that is, we'll talk about challenges in a little bit, but this is one thing that became very apparent when I began to look at leaving my corporate job. There was one event in 2005. There was one event for 10 years. In 2015, there became 3 events. 2019, there were only 5. 2022, there were 11. I thought, this will be easy. There'll be 16 or 18 next year. There are 33 events for 2023.
So your private jet is always fired up and ready to go, right? Holy cow.
I'm telling you, I was not prepared to that when we submitted our sponsorship proposals in 2022 for the amount of just additional work. And it's been amazing because we'll have more than 5,000 racers in 2023 race at drag and drive events, which probably means a unique count of 3,800 compared to the 1,300 last year. So it's amazing.
Well, it's incredible what you're doing. Just absolutely brilliant. Fantastic.
So from listening to many of your podcasts, I know you're a big Porsche guy. So
really?
I did a little bit
How'd you know that?
I did a little bit of research to kind of find out and see who had done what, right? Mm-hmm. Porsche isn't typically a name that you associate with hot rodding, which Hot Rod Drag Week, we look at a lot of muscle cars, correct?
Right.
So there are actually 3 Porsches that raced in events in 2023, but here's the crazy part. Only one of them finished.
Oh,
And it was the 2006 911. I thought you'd kind of appreciate that.
Nice.
And then the quickest average ET of any drag and drive Porsche ever is a GT2 RS from 2020 at the Rocky Mountain Race Week event with an 11.1 average across 5 days. And he raced at Bandimere and Pueblo, which are 3,000 feet above sea level.
Ooh.
So I thought you'd find that kind of interesting.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, there you go. My hat's off to the Porsche guy representing. Yeah, you don't think of Porsches as really those kind of cars. They're more road cars, GT cars, track cars, things like that. But I tell you, these days with launch control and some of these cars having just massive horsepower to put down, my hat's off to that guy for taking the car he loves and doing whatever he wants with it. I think it's cool.
Yep. I think they definitely probably had a lot of fun in the curves of Rocky Mountain Race Week. They're, in the mountains, and that drive, I think, would be a blast in a car like that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about inspirations or what I call driving inspirations. People that are very influential in your life. Has there been somebody like that for you?
Certainly. There's actually 2. And the first one I just got to see this weekend, which was great. His name's Danny Diesel, or Daniel Green. He literally sold everything he owned and he's not really a drag racer, but he wanted to go drag racing. And so he sold everything he owned, built this truck, and traveled the country as a way to tell people and show people that they can live their dream as well.
Does he have a YouTube page, or how can people follow him?
Yep, Danny Diesel is the easiest way to locate him. Posts pretty often on Facebook. It's probably his most used social media.
Yeah.
So Danny Diesel's, it's a great one. And we met at a drag and drive event, and from 2 seconds in, I knew he was a guy that I was going to get along with. And obviously him and I have spent a lot of time on the phone together and talking, but he actually came on one of our podcasts early on and told the whole story. It's really cool. And I'll tell you, I spent the weekend with him, and he's even still, this is, 3 years ago, he's still providing opportunities. And because of him, I'll get to announce and have been announcing at the for Summit Racing Midwest Drag Race Series all across the country for regular drag racing. So it's pretty neat.
How cool. I love it. Now, does his last name have an E on the end like mine or no?
It does not.
No. Okay. Well, I was hoping maybe he was a cousin. He'd call me up and I'd go hang out with him.
That's right. That's right.
The uncle I didn't know about. Cool. And you
Yep.
mentioned a second person.
Yeah, certainly Wes Buck of Drag Illustrated. He's a big inspiration for what we do here. What, his passion for drag racing kind of flows over with my passion for drag and drive. I love drag racing, but I loved seeing street cars, drag cars out on the street. So he knew he wanted to live a drag racing lifestyle, but wasn't the greatest driver. So he created Drag Illustrated. And then from there, he's great at telling stories, great at providing the background that comes with all of that, not just the stat side of stuff. So he's a big inspiration for what we do over here.
Well, it's very cool. And both those gentlemen have a thing in common, and that is they figured out a way to wrap their passion for automobiles into their lives, which again is what Cars Yeah is all about. So you have to make some introductions to these two guys so I can get them on the show. Could you do that?
Sir, yes, please. I would love to have them.
Okay.
I would love for them to be on your show.
That would be great. I would love it too. Now, of course, the next question has to do with the challenge question. You listen all the time, so take it away.
So in 2007, as the market was doing great, I had been selling cars since 1999 and had done well at it and had met a partner. We started a dealership together. In March of 2008, he decided he no longer wanted to do that. And so along with everyone else in 2008, things began to struggle. I went 8 months with no paycheck, cost my house, cost me my marriage at that time. And very, very difficult time, especially for a guy that had worked for someone else selling cars, my entire adult life at that point, almost 10 years. And now I needed to, here I have the freedom to do this, but at the same time, I owed people a lot of money, to be able to do that. So luckily, my mom and stepdad helped fund me for just a little bit so I could get all of the cars sold and not lose everything, lost money and house and marriage and stuff. But ended up coming through that, just went back to work and selling cars at another dealership, ended up catching up on everything. Really took that as a big learning lesson. My partner and I, obviously we didn't talk anymore after that, became friends again, all of that kind of stuff. While working at one of the dealerships that I went back to, I met my now wife, and we have two beautiful daughters. And
Nice.
And here I am living my dream years later. So 15 years it took me to get back to this point. I could have done it faster, but I was really, really scared, to be honest.
Well, that time period was horrific for so many people. I mean, it was just a lot of people didn't see it coming, and all of a sudden it happened so fast. And I guess the lessons here, or I would ask you this, when you look back, a couple lessons that you learned out of that difficult situation, what were they?
Yeah, certainly. I didn't work hard enough. When you work for yourself, that doesn't mean you can work less. That means
No
you're going to
kidding.
work more, right? So there's a lot of that goes into my knowledge now. 2021, Narxoleptic was my main source of creativity with social media and videos and things like that. And so we grew that brand. And then obviously we were talking about drag and drive so much on Narxoleptic that our personal projects and customer project workflow and video flow had scaled back. So I didn't feel it was fair for those customers and those followers to watch just drag and drive stuff. So we created the new brand. So really the lesson I learned then was that I did not work hard enough the first time, and I made up for that this second round. And, essentially having a lot better plan, knowing that, hey, sometimes things aren't going to work the way you want them to. And what are you going to do then? And so it created a lot of internal want from me to prove, not just to myself and my family, because we do have a competitive gymnast and a competitive cheerleader. We have a house payment and car payment and all that kind of stuff. So when it gets down to it and the 2023 sponsorship money is light and the 2024 hasn't come yet, what am I going to do? And there's a lot of strength I think I gained during that time of like reflection that I look back now and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so weak, but I wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's interesting because you go back to the basics of when we were kids, and your parents are saying, you know, save for a rainy day. That concept, and we touched on it earlier. So many people just live right on the edge, and you just don't know that rainy day could come, even if you are a super hard worker. You're doing everything right, but there's things around you, like the recession of 08, 09, like the COVID situation, and you know, you look at the horrors going on in several countries today with wars. All of a sudden, you know, and you've got to be prepared. And sometimes it takes tough lessons like that to remind us that we need to be a little more careful. And I think you know this, having two wonderful children and a great wife, is the things that we used to think are important, like fancy cars and all the other stuff, really aren't. You know, they really aren't that. Yeah, you try to tell that to young people and they sometimes roll their eyes, but hopefully they listen a little bit and plan ahead a little bit. When you look ahead to 2024, what's your bucket list for what you guys are going to be doing with Drag and Drive?
I'm so excited about what is coming. For people that have followed us for a long time, they know I say it all the time. We're only getting started. And that truly is the phrase for 2024. We're going to build out a team. Right now, currently, Eric White, my co-host and producer, and I have really done 98% of the work to build this brand. And now it's time to take that next level, add someone else, even if it is just a part-time assistant to help in some way. But to be able to provide more coverage for the racers that are there, because that's why we do this. That's the same way a lot of other magazines do their stuff, is to provide coverage for those racers and to give them a memorable experience while they're at an event or something like that. So that's what we wanted to do. Eric is a phenomenal photographer and picture editor. I'm more video and live stream and interview based. So him and I have a great team built up, and now we need to really just push that and get in the take it to the next level for us. And that's what we're going to do for 2024.
Well, awesome. Sounds like a great year coming up. So I always ask about special vehicles, and I understand that you have a special vehicle. It was a vehicle that was your grandfather's, correct me if I'm wrong, a 66 GMC C10. Would that be the car you'd like to share?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So we call the old truck Stanley. That was my grandfather's name, but I always say that we named it after him, one, because it was his, but two, it's just like him. It's rough. It used to cough and hack and like all the stuff that just someone that lived a hard life. He was an iron worker. And so it was also my first vehicle. So he drove it daily from 67 to 92. I turned 12 years old. I had always been a car guy. Instantly was like, this truck is the one I want. So in 94, I started working. In 96, he gave it to me as my first truck. So it was a 283 with a 3-speed in the floor. And just, I hope all young car guys and girls have to drive something like that. Manual brake, steering, huge steering wheel, And so I took once he's kind of, him and I both sent it to the body shop. It lived in body shop jail for about 3 years.
Body shop jail. Yeah.
Yeah. I finally
pay the ransom this month to get another bit of work done.
Well, and we were paying the guy and he wasn't doing any of the work. So
ouch.
That was the struggle. Yeah. So it still has about 2 inches of Bondo on one side from where he just tried to fix the caved in bedside.
Yeah.
And so anyways, it's there, but I brought it to my house. I put an overdrive transmission in it. My dad and I took it on the 2012 Hot Rod Power Tour, which came close to the house. And then my brother, dad, and myself went in 2 different cars on the 2013 Hot Rod Power Tour that crossed to Arkansas. So we hit like Texarkana, Texas, Little Rock, Arkansas, and Memphis, and then came home in the old truck. So that was kind of fun. So now that truck has a engine from a 2005 Tahoe with a big turbo on it, and it makes 500 wheel horsepower.
Oh my gosh.
And I can get in it and drive it anywhere in the country that I want to, right? That's what we built it for, was burnouts and ice cream. And then the event we hosted, I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute, the Circuit Drag and Drive. My daughter, who was then 9, she was my co-pilot for the Circuit 2022 in the old truck. So not only did we host it, we also raced it, and she had to help me change tires and all that kind of stuff. So it was an amazing experience. And since then, she's been hooked. So she's as much of a car girl as I am a car guy, I think.
Yeah, that's fun. That year had such a wonderful front end. It had quite a character with those. I think, are they turn signals that are up above the headlights?
Yes, that's right.
In that
Yep.
little vents in the grill, I guess it was. Yeah, very different looking truck with what they did with that, but a lot of character, no doubt, much like Stanley. So
That's right. That's right.
perfect for the name. So here's where I become a bit of a car psychologist. If you were reincarnated as a vehicle, what would you be? But more importantly, why?
Well, I'll tell you, I've gone over this a lot.
Good.
Trying to think, because this is a great question for car guys and girls to ask themselves all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I've come up with, I think, probably a Pontiac G8 GT. It's got 4 doors. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy bringing people on an adventure. So 4 doors so we can haul people. It's got a V8, so it has, not just the ability to, or I guess me, I don't know. I have the ability to do the hard work. You can really put your foot in it and get down and dig deep, do that. And then for the most part, that car's pretty unassuming to the masses, but the folks that know, they know what's up. They know that car can get down if it needs to.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I'm glad you put some thought to that. Now, I love to talk about how people give back because I've learned after interviewing so many people that we are happiest when we're helping other people. And I know that you've raised, I mentioned it in the intro, you've raised a bunch of money for the Northwest Arkansas Children's Charities. Tell me about why you've chosen that as your philanthropic focus.
Car people are great folks as a whole group. And so we wanted to be able to help children that were maybe, so one of our largest charities that we've helped is the Northwest Arkansas Children's Shelter. And they actually take in children that have been abused or neglected. And we wanted those kids to know that there are people out there that care about them. And doing that, obviously the car people are probably some of the best folks to do that because it. If you're standing there talking about a car, you're not asking about their previous life experiences and things like that. We're all talking about the cars. We're talking about them as a person today. So a lot of people go back in historical and, what did you do and how'd you get here? Car guys typically don't do that. They're like, what's your next modification you're going to do to this car? And I feel like in my experience, that helps teenagers and young adults get over some stuff in the past because they're not having to talk about it all the time. So we started that because we wanted kids to know that the car community is a loving, welcoming group of people.
Well, and also it's an opportunity for their future. If they find out they love cars, there's career opportunities there. And it seems to be growing. Well, it is growing and growing. There's opportunities for sponsorships, for groups like RPM Foundation and Tech Force, which I support, to get money to people so they can get into schools and trade schools and things and learn more about it. So cars aren't just pretty things. They're actually things that can be a big part of your life and can support you and your family, just like you and me. How about a great book?
Yes, certainly. So car books that are motivational are, I don't know, they're pretty hard to come by. But one book that I go to, I'm not going to say often, but is the Richard Rawlings Fast and Loud book. And really the part that stuck out to me was that he had pitched that show for 8 years before somebody gave him a chance. So it wasn't a flash in the pan. It wasn't just happenstance that he became Richard Rawlings. He was Richard Rawlings before Gas Monkey was even a thing. So that's always a good book to read, in my opinion. But typically I read for a break. I read fiction. I like Stephen Hunter, who writes the Bob Lee Swagger books. I like those just to sit back if I'm going to read for a weekend and take my mind off of all of normal stuff. I typically read for fun.
Richard's book is a good one because Richard has a persona, and sometimes, and he's been a guest a couple times here, sometimes he can be a little off-putting because he's pretty out there, right? But if you learn about somebody's background and how they got to where they are, because so many of us see people as successful and just think, they just rolled out of bed and the next day they're successful. Very rarely does that ever happen. It's usually a whole lot of work. So when you learn about what you just shared, that little snippet of him, I think there's a little more respect, probably a lot more respect for what people have been able to pull off. And it's not easy. That's for sure. So let's go on the ultimate drive today. I'm a bit of an enabler as a regular listener here on Cars Yeah. What's the vehicle that you're going to want me to provide you with, and where are you going to be going, and who are you going to be with?
The first trip, I'm going to take 2 trips. I know I've done 2 on all these, but the first trip I'm going to take, we're going to do the complete Route 66 in a big block 4-speed 70 Chevelle with my dad and brother. We lost my dad in February of 2020, and that is where really my whole life changed. That's when I decided I'm not going to work at a job every day and do that. So my dad definitely, and my brother, because I mean, why not? Well, we have fun together now. We want to go drag racing. We want to stay in crappy hotels, motels along the way, and just do lots of burnouts. And then the second would be David Freiberger in something that's makes good power. I don't know. I really like turbochargers and probably 4-door doing burnouts. But David Freiberger in that very first Hot Rod Drag Week in 2005.
Sounds like a couple great trips. I love it. So you've taken us on a really fun and inspirational ride today. Really happy that you and I connected and you shared what you're doing, because you really are the epitome, the quintessential Cars Yeah guest, if you will, and
Thank
listener.
you.
Yeah, which is great. So could you leave us with maybe some parting words of inspiration or wisdom?
So I'm going to say this, and you have to read between the lines, but you have to truly find what you are passionate about. When people are watching these YouTubers and these bloggers and vloggers coming up now, they just see what they're doing now. If that's not your true passion, you're going to fall short. So find what you truly have a passion for and work a minimum of 2 hours a day, building some kind of brand. And don't even look at growth for a year or two at least. Just head down and grind.
That's what you got to do. Absolutely. It takes a lot of hard work. And you look at the people that have pulled it off, and if you go back to their beginnings, you see it's pretty humble. But it has been a heck of a lot of work. But that is one of the secret sauces to life for sure. How can people learn more about what you're doing, Mike?
Oh, certainly. You can find us at drag-in-drive.com, and you can find us on all social media outlets. We are on Instagram. We're probably the most active on Instagram on drag_in_drive. And then Facebook, of course, Drag and Drive Addiction. We also have a Drag and Drive Addicts Facebook group that you can go in there and talk to other racers and things like that. YouTube, we're very active on YouTube with obviously our weekly live streams Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern and Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then TikTok. We are all over TikTok, which I'm sure you hear a lot of on that side. And I welcome anybody to send us any questions. Send us a message on anything you have questions about. We run a full list of events on our website so people can find them easily and find locations and things like links to registration and all that.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, I'll put all these links on Mike's show notes page. Again, you can find that on the Cars Yeah website. Just put in the search bar Mike Narx, Narx. There's a unique last name, Mike Narx, and you'll find everything about Drag and Drive. If you love cars that go fast, and you love drag racing, this might even be something you want to get involved in and go out and drive. Wow, very cool. So you've taught us a lot of new things today. Mike, I really appreciate you reaching out to me, being a guest on the show, for all your kind listening hours, because you've listened to a lot of shows, I know. I'm very grateful for that. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you, well, down the road, maybe at a drag race. That would be fun.
Hey, thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. 20, 50, or 100 years from now, will there be a workforce to care for the collector vehicles we love? With auto shop programs disappearing across the country, it's a question we enthusiasts have to ask. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these vehicles aren't lost to time. One of the many ways RPM, which is short for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, is accomplishing this goal is through workforce development initiatives. The RPM Apprenticeship Program enables the next generation of artisans to earn a living while they learn the craft of restoring and preserving these vehicles directly from industry professionals. The Endangered Skills Program documents the process of masters training future craftspeople on a variety of critical skills in danger of being lost forever. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of the collector vehicle skills trade, visit RPM Foundation today. They're one of the charities of choice here on Cars Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.